I had to lock myself in there because of the storm. Because I felt that there, in the middle of the mountain, in the middle of nowhere, it was the only way to protect myself. I heard laughter far away outside, and it said that there, on that mountain, there are witches. But somehow I understood it. At that moment, I understood why they were laughing. I understood where I had gotten myself into. For a second, I had the realization. What was in there with me? It was worse outside than I expected. Good evening, community. I'm very glad to welcome you from the new account here in this space. Recording from a very stormy Mexico City from this room full of books but with very thin windows. So if at any moment the rain gets too loud, please forgive me if you end up hearing it. For the next story, I'm going to ask you to be patient. It's one where you first need to immerse yourself and lose yourself in the place. Imagine it. Once you can see it in your head, you'll be ready to experience the terror that's coming. Remember, please don't let yourself be influenced and listen to the following story at your own risk. And seriously, if there are children or minors who tend to get scared nearby, please ask them to leave, or else listen later. I'm going to ask you to listen to me about that. It's really important. Honestly, it's a strong story. And to everyone else, you have 10 seconds to change your mind to look for another podcast, one that will calm you down a bit more. Once you're in, there's no turning back. Are you listening to Relatos of the Night? My story community begins with a warning. Listen to your grandmothers if you're lucky to have them. There is no one in the world more concerned about you. Sometimes moms worry too much about teaching us lessons, about preparing us for life. But grandmothers, all they want, the only thing they pray for, is for us to be okay, for us not to have to go through things that will mark us forever, even when those things could be a lesson that will help us for the rest of our lives. If I'm saying all this, it's because what I'm about to tell you is a mix of things that I experienced with the stories that were told to me, but together they bring to life what was the most terrifying, the most horrible night of my life. My grandmother's house is in the town where my mom and her whole family were born. My mom came to the capital to work, but everyone else stayed over there. I met them after my mom divorced my father when I was 10. He, for some reason, didn't want me to spend time with that side of my family, to look into that part of my life. They welcomed me with a birthday party. And since then, always, even if they were far away, they were the family that was always there. Unfortunately, my mom's family has the very bad luck of almost all of them dying too young. That big family in the village kept getting smaller. I know others were scattered nearby. But as the years went by, the only person I would go visit was my grandmother, Julia. Especially when she got sick. My mom and I took turns so that every weekend at least one of us would go over there to stay with Grandma Julia. That's what I used to call my grandma. And this, everyone? This happens on a Friday. Not just any Friday. I know this is going to sound like a cliche, but this started on a Friday the 13th of December of 2013. I arrived and got off the bus that passed through the town. It's so small that no one else got off there. Then I walked to my grandmother's house. It was impossible not to notice it every time I went. Pay attention. See the stores where I used to run excitedly for candy when I was a kid, and how there were fewer and fewer each time. An OXXO that survived among the few remaining townspeople having outlasted all the others. My grandmother's house was near the edge of town, up a street with a clear view of everything. All the lights, every lamp on every street, every window in the place, a view I still remember and that I love. I found my grandmother outside worried, looking toward the hills, toward the trees about 100 meters from her house where the mountain began. At first I thought she was watering the plants, but then I realized it was something different, that she looked distressed. I asked her what was wrong, and she hugged me as soon as she saw me. She said my Uncle Lalo visited her and left her very worried. He was there talking with her briefly, stopping by to check on her. But then, once again, she lost her sanity. He started talking to himself, saying things that didn't make sense, as if he were talking to someone else, as if he were answering someone who wasn't there. Then, as before, he ran out, this time toward the mountain. My Uncle Lalo, my grandmother's nephew and my mom's younger cousin, also went through phases like this. He'd vanish for weeks, go wild and get lost, sometimes heading to the mountain, other times turning up in another town. They say another uncle once found him far away near the border and brought him back. My mom says it's because he did a lot of drugs as a teen. My grandma thinks it's because his mom had a debt. One of those debts was something else, and they collected it by taking her boy's sanity. Mama Julia really believed in witches, but not in the way most of us might imagine them. But real witches. Back then it was very common over there, those women who did spells for you, who helped you with your health, with love, with fortune. There was a solution to everything, an answer for every problem. Yet there was also a debt, which they sometimes delayed collecting, but never truly forgot, never went unpaid. Mama Julia didn't get involved with them at all, and it was something from another time, from way back. Since I started visiting, I never saw anything like that. No matter how much they said they had gone to the mountains, because once they had played with the municipal president and they were looking for them, I never saw anything. My grandmother always believed my Uncle Lalo's temporary madness had a cause. It was their doing. Witchcraft. We went into her house. She planned to give me dinner since I arrived tired, but I noticed my grandmother, my mom Julia, looked very worried. She couldn't stop staring, and I noticed she kept glancing at the window facing the hill. I quickly ate dinner and told her I was going out to look for Uncle Lalo, hoping he was still nearby. Out there, dazed among the trees, she told me no. She pointed out the clouds in the distance. A storm would be coming soon. I replied that's why it was important to find my uncle soon, so he wouldn't stay up there and something might happen to him. I was worried about him, of course, but above all, about Mom Julia, because she couldn't handle those worries anymore, because every concern made her feel bad. If I could go look for him, I was going to do it. I'd spent so much time with my cousins in those hills that I already knew the area well. I wasn't going to go somewhere unfamiliar. In the end, I convinced my grandmother. She told me that my uncle was wearing a green sweater, one that she had knitted for him herself, and that, please, I shouldn't stay in the woods after midnight. I told her not to worry. It was just past 8. At that moment, I didn't think it would take me more than an hour to find my Uncle Lalo. Before I left, she told me one more thing. A warning that I felt, for some reason, was much more serious. Right before giving me her blessing. No matter what happens, son, even if the storm catches you, don't stay at the Berlanga brothers' house. It's abandoned. But it's not empty. I knew the story. The Berlanga brothers were twin older men who always lived alone in a little house on the hill on a flat field up there, which they used to plant all kinds of things. That's how they made their living. Their house stood in the center of the field. I remember seeing it once when I was a child, but I didn't even know how I got there. I didn't expect to see it that night. I went down the path I knew, the one that made me feel safe. Though the wind was picking up, I shouted to my Uncle Lalo. They say the wind can carry your voice away and shouts even farther. So I trusted that the wind would carry my voice to my uncle. Once I entered the trees, the village sounds disappeared. I already knew that strange silence of the mountain. Every now and then, you could only hear the dogs barking in the distance, but nothing else, as if only they were allowed to make any noise. After climbing for nearly half an hour, I heard voices, talking calmly. I walked over and saw two people by an extinguished campfire. It was already dark, and I didn't want to use my phone's flashlight on them, so I spoke to the two silhouettes. "Good evening. Have you seen Lalo pass by here?" I asked that way so they'd know I was from the village, that everyone here knows each other, because I still had doubts that they might be criminals hiding around there. In the dark, they were black silhouettes, and I only saw the whites of their eyes. They turned to look at me. "Hello?" "Nothing happens around here at this hour," one of them said. "Nobody comes by here," the other one said immediately. "He's my uncle. He's unwell, gets confused, and we're worried he might get lost up here. He's Julia's nephew. She's my grandmother." "I told you." "I think we do know Julia. Yes, we know Julia. Yes, we know Julia." One of them said it, and then the other one too, talking over each other in their answers. And that seemed strange to me. The town is tiny, really tiny, and maybe it was because they were some of the oldest people there, but I knew that everyone there knew who my grandmother was. That's why I said her name, because I was starting to feel suspicious, so they would know who I was. But no one has come through here, or we didn't see them pass by. We didn't see them pass by. We didn't see... Keep going up to find him soon, because the storm is coming. Because around here, you shouldn't be out on nights like this. You shouldn't be out on nights like this out here. You shouldn't be out... I thanked them, trying to be very polite, as if that would keep them from doing anything to me if they were bad people. One of them, the one who spoke first, stood up. He came a little closer to me. It was so dark among the trees that I couldn't see his shape even a meter away. I couldn't see any details on him. I couldn't see what he was wearing or what his face looked like. He was just a dark shape near me, and all I could see were his eyes. "You do know you're not coming alone, kid?" He spoke to me quietly so only I could hear. "I know you're worried and need to find your relative, but tonight isn't a good night to go up," he said, and the silhouette sat down beside the other near the dead campfire. As if I wasn't there, they kept talking about their own things, and I said goodbye. I told them I'd see them on the way back, and as soon as I walked a few steps, I stopped hearing them. I was worried. I promised Mama Julia I was scared to keep going, but going back scared me more. Telling her I found nothing and lacked the courage to keep climbing in the darkness. Who, in their right mind, would dare to say something like that to her? I don't know how much farther I climbed, but next to the path I was on, to the right, I saw a short trail that led to a field. There, without the shade of the trees, you could see a little farther beyond the light of my lamp. I saw an overgrown field full of weeds. In the middle of it, A small adobe house barely standing, the house of the Verlanga brothers. Also there, without the trees above me, I could see that the storm was approaching, and I thought about what Mama Julia said about her warning. But the little house didn't look like a place I would even want to go near. I kept climbing and walking a bit longer. Sometimes I turned off the lamp because I didn't want the battery to die. I couldn't stay in the dark up there, so I had to start saving energy. I would turn off the lamp for a long time while I shouted. My eyes gradually got used to the darkness. Suddenly, and I'm not lying, I felt like I could even see better when I turned it off. I kept walking up the path that now felt unfamiliar and unrecognizable. I started to lose confidence. I turned on the light, walked a bit, and scanned the ground for Uncle Lalo, shining the light to spot him crouched somewhere. Turning it off, looking into the distance around in the pure darkness. Suddenly, when I turned it off, I saw something. In front of me in the darkness, but very clearly there was a lady standing in the middle of the path where I was heading. It was windy and the drizzle became rain. The woman held her shawl near her throat with one hand to keep it in place. She wouldn't show her face, especially at that distance and in that darkness. Would have been impossible anyway. I tried. I wanted to say goodnight, but I couldn't. Have you ever felt danger up close? The kind that's subtle, hidden in normality. But something tells you that you shouldn't trust someone. That danger you feel between your stomach and your chest, and that simply tells you to get away from there. That's what I felt. Something that didn't let me talk to him. And I started to remember Mama Julia's fears, the stories I had heard. About the witches that are seen and hide in the woods. The only thing I was sure of was that this short figure was not my Uncle Lalo. So, without saying anything, I turned around and started going down. I turned to see if it was gone, but I could see the silhouette closer. It was running toward me. I turned off my lamp and ran down in total darkness, unable to see the floor. Nothing, absolutely nothing, but I kept running, letting my knees fall forward, driven by the slope that kept getting steeper. The woman behind me stayed close, matching my speed. I knew I had to take a risk and run as fast as I could to escape. I thought I could make it to the extinguished campfire, to where those people who had warned me were. But I also felt like I wouldn't make it and had to think fast. Suddenly, I felt something on my jaw, in my mouth, in my nose that started to burn, stabbing deep inside my head. I felt mud getting into my mouth, into my eyes. I had fallen face first. I don't know how much farther I rolled, but the first thing I did was get up, only to hear something running through the undergrowth. Something that I could swear was running away laughing. Is that what you wanted? You tried to scare me into hurting myself, right? I screamed into the darkness, angry, somehow hoping that was all it was. As if wishing, asking God that they just wanted to scare me, hoping they'd let me go and let me keep going down. The storm had already hit. I tried to keep going down as best I could, but water was now running down the path. I was turning around in the darkness. I couldn't see it, but I felt like something was following me, now among the trees. The storm had already struck. I tried to recover, to keep going down as best I could, but the water started running down the trail. I looked around in the darkness. I couldn't see her, but I felt like something was following me, now among the trees. The path was almost gone. It seemed impossible to follow. And then to the left, there it was, the field, and in the middle of it, the little house. My grandmother's warning from my mom, Julia. It was still there, very present, but so was my survival instinct, telling me I had to take cover. Find a place where I could wait for the storm to pass. That lightning hadn't struck far from me. The house was the only shelter nearby, from the storm and from whatever was following me. I went into the field and crossed it as fast as the overgrown weeds would let me. In what was once a field where everything was planted, where everything grew. Midfield, a few meters from the house, I turned around again, toward the trees, toward total darkness. I don't know if it was the storm hitting my eyes, making me close them for a moment, but I thought I saw in the lightning's flash something, some treetops where I had come from, where I had come out of. I thought I saw figures, women in black up there, on the thinnest branches, on ones that shouldn't be able to hold them. At least I could make out 3. And I ran to the little house and knocked. It smelled of earth and abandonment. I opened the door. It was obvious that no one was there, so I went in. There were a few leaks, but it was mostly dry. I could wait there while the storm passed. I remembered the story of that place because, remember, I told you it wasn't just about what I had experienced, but also about the stories I've heard. Everyone in town talked about it. Years ago, the whole place was full of police. Not the rural ones we were used to, but city police, the kind who dress in plain clothes. They were looking for something, for someone, going house to house, for a woman who wasn't from there, someone nobody recognized when they showed her picture. Among them, there were 3 who seemed friendly, but at times they were more aggressive than the others. Initially, the villagers believed they were leaders, but they later learned the truth. Those 3, the most desperate to find her, were not police officers. They were priests. The girl they sought had run off, or someone helped her flee. They said she was heading to the capital. They said she was a woman possessed by the devil, that she had been locked up in a convent for months, while doctors, priests, bishops, and cardinals came to see her, who were waiting for authorization from the Vatican to perform an exorcism on her. But when they finally did it, when they gave the green light for the ritual, someone let her go, someone opened the door to her room, and all the others she needed to get out of the convent. How did they know she was in the village? I don't know. Little was known. They searched for her for days, then left. But nobody in the town told them there was one more house to search. One that wasn't exactly in the town anymore, but up there, on the hill, in the middle of a field for planting. The house of the twins, of the brothers, Berlanga. No one knows if someone asked them to hide her or if she came there asking for help, but no one remembered them. Those who went for firewood or hunting, they said screams could be heard from inside. Men's screams, women's screams, someone shouting insults in a very aggressive way. They also said the brothers visited the village one afternoon to buy milk, eggs, and cleaning supplies. That seemed odd to the man from the little store since they kept their animals up there, chickens and 2 goats. It was strange for them to come down, especially to get that. Sometimes they would come down to sell an animal or to trade. A few weeks went by and the voices stopped being heard, the screams. But you also stopped seeing the brothers working their land. There were fruits ready to be harvested, but they were left to rot. The chickens disappeared. One of the goats came down hungry and thirsty and ended up in the village. When people went up, they say they found a horrible sight. They say the woman was up there, but the brothers were gone. As soon as the police were called, the others arrived again, the ones who weren't from the village, and the priests arrived too. They went up at night, and by dawn, they were already gone. They had already taken everything. And I always thought that was folklore. Legends. A curious take on two elderly men who simply died of old age. To make it all more lyrical, nicer to tell. But at that moment, in there, I couldn't help but imagine that it was all true. They had hidden a possessed woman right where I was. No, it couldn't be. It was enough that some crazy old ladies were already following me through the woods, as if I needed to be so unlucky as to end up there. I heard laughter in the distance outside from where I came, in the trees. Somehow, at that moment, I understood why they were laughing. I understood where I had gotten myself into. For a second, I realized it. If I really wasn't alone, if the stories were true, if my grandmother was right, what was in there with me was worse than what was outside. Thanks for joining us, community. Discover what happens next in the following episode. No, don't believe it. We'll be right back. But it is strange to think how just 2 years ago, the episodes had grown to 15 minutes, and how a year ago, they were 25. How some of the first sagas happened in episodes of 10, 12 minutes. And if you're one of those who have noticed how we're working to bring you more and more content, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, because we know that a lot of people don't notice it. But when someone does, we feel like all the effort is worth it, that they really are watching it. We're going to continue now. But before we continue, let me remind you that you can have a piece of Relatos de la Noche in your hands if you manage to find the book. Wherever you see it, buy it. That's nice. It's very exciting to suddenly come across it in physical form, especially if you weren't looking for it, if it just appears right there in front of you. But if you can't wait, as always, we leave you a link so you can buy it online and have it delivered to your home. Now is the time to continue. There's still more story tonight. There were 2 rooms in there, one big and one small, which I think was the bedroom. The door was closed, but I could hear, if I paid close attention beyond the storm, that there was someone there. It's abandoned, but it's not alone. Mom Julia's words echoed in my head. Where had I ended up? Where had I gotten myself into? I opened the door with some effort. A solid wooden door, very heavy, as if it were meant for the outside, but there it was inside, barely held by worn-out hinges. There was no one, nothing, just a strange, unpleasant smell coming from there. There was a candle holder on the floor. I couldn't recognize the saint anymore. It looked carved, as if someone had tried to erase it. Luckily, I had a lighter with me. I still smoked back then, and I lit it. My cigarettes had gotten wet from the fall, but I managed to save one. It tasted like heaven. Some time passed when I heard something. It sounded like something was scratching the wall. I tried to pay attention. I located it. It seemed to be coming from the wall behind me, and then it moved. I realized that something was scratching the wall outside, that something was scratching around the house. I heard it clearly when it passed by the window. When it scratched glass and not adobe, but nothing could be seen, I could only keep hearing it. The fright made my stomach hurt badly. I felt like it was squeezing me inside, like it was filling me up, like I had to spill my guts out, like I had to take them out. But there was nothing to use. There was nothing. There were a few things left, some rusty kitchen utensils lying around. I would have to find something. I started moving them. My stomach was filling up. It was squeezing me from the inside. I had to get it out, and it was overwhelming. I searched, no matter how dirty it was, for whatever I could find, and finally, I found a small closed knife. That would be enough to open my stomach and remove the bothersome gut. I took off my shirt, I felt around my whole stomach, and I found it. It was up above before the ribs started. That's where I felt the worst pressure. If I took out that gut, it would surely get better. There was nothing to rinse the knife with, but I hoped to make a clean cut, just so it would let me stick my fingers into the flesh and pull. I placed the closed knife right on the spot and made a cut. As soon as I felt the first stab of pain, I managed to regret it, to wake up. What the hell was I doing? How could I have considered hurting myself like that? Why did I see it as normal? What was happening to me? What was there in that house? I heard someone laughing inside the empty room. I walked toward the door, but out there, in the field, at the entrance to the trees along the path where I had arrived, there was something out there. I don't know if it was the same one, but I saw a woman dressed in black, holding her shawl in the same place, so the storm wouldn't take it away. With her other hand, she was telling me to go, to come closer. What the hell was I supposed to do? What would you have done? The bedroom door creaked as if it was moving, but I turned and saw it, or so I thought, just the same. Still barely ajar. I looked outside again. The woman walked toward the trees and vanished from sight. And then, from among the overgrown weeds in the field surrounding the house, two figures emerged, also dressed in black. They ran after the woman. What if they were waiting for me? What if it was a trap and they were waiting for me to come out? Luckily, I hadn't dared to do it. I sat at the entrance with my hand on the door. I'd stay in there, but if something came out of there, out of the room, if the candle went out and left me in the dark, was I going to run away? I'd handle whatever was in the woods. I sat down. I leaned back. I was really tired. I opened my eyes. Without realizing it, I had already gotten up. I heard something coming from the little room, like someone was eating something. The door was half open and I got closer. I could see something in there. The light from the candle slipped in and let me see that horrifying scene. There was a woman. She was wearing a necklace made of what looked like fingers. She was sitting on a mass of flesh and blood on what seemed to have once been two bodies. She had blood coming out of her mouth. Her eyes rolled back, arms stretched out, one down, one up, like a figure I remembered seeing drawn, like a demonic figure. She didn't look at me, but she didn't need to. With those white eyes facing the wall, she was piercing my soul. I could feel her. I turned to run out. Nothing mattered anymore, but at the door, there I was, sitting, asleep. It was as if, at that moment, I realized that I had separated from my body. I opened my eyes. I was there, sitting at the door of the little house. I heard the sounds in the room. The bedroom door was ajar, and I didn't dare to look in. Whatever it was that I had just seen, however I had just seen it, it was enough. I left the house. I started walking through that field of tall grass when I heard something moving among them. And then a voice, "Run!" I listened to that voice that sounded a lot like my Uncle Lalo's, but I didn't think about it. I ran because it must have been 4 o'clock. But I could see just enough to find the path going down. Either it was getting light early, or God gave me the strength and ability to see where I was running. I soon found the extinguished campfire without anyone around it, but I knew I was heading the right way. I got home just before dawn. The rain had stopped, but my grandmother prayed, exhausted. She couldn't sleep at all, waiting for me to return. She said she couldn't lose me and made me promise never to go up the mountain alone again. I told her yes, that I promised, and I cried. For everything, for her, for the fear, for what I had just seen, because I was tired, and everything hurt, my soul hurt, and because I hadn't been able to go back with my Uncle Lalo. And I fell asleep. I fell into a deep sleep and woke up around 2 in the afternoon. When my grandmother went to the market, I looked for 2 remaining acquaintances in town and asked them to join me at the Berlanga family's house. I had to see her. I had to go back to see if my uncle was there. As we went up, they shared everything they knew about that place and house. They said that they found something horrible up there. When the police went up to look for the woman, but nobody knew for sure what it was. What was it that they saw? Only that it almost drove crazy the poor souls who witnessed it. We went up and the house was empty. I went in. There were no signs of anything, just my burned out candle. I really had been there that night. I don't know why, but they asked me to leave a few minutes after we arrived, and obviously I listened to them. I didn't want to spend another moment there. As we were leaving, one of my friends noticed something. At first he thought it was a person among the branches and we got scared. But then we took a closer look. A scarecrow, which had become small compared to how much the weeds around it had grown. They had already outgrown it to the point of almost hiding it completely. It was wearing a green sweater. I thought of my Uncle Lalo, but that sweater was very worn out, dirty, torn, and covered in dirt, as if it had always been there for years. We never heard from my Uncle Lalo again. He never came back from that crisis. My mom, Julia, died shortly after from that illness that made us go take care of her. Obviously, I haven't gone back to that place since then. It must be even more abandoned now. Even lonelier. I have nothing waiting for me there, except maybe in some way, that house that keeps talking to me. But far away, I feel like I can silence that voice, that I can ignore it. I'm calm, even though there's still something there, even though it's waiting for someone to take it away, to remove it, to set it free. If that ever happens, I just hope that whatever is there has forgotten about me, or that it never manages to reach me. Relatos de la Noche community. If you're listening on YouTube, you may have noticed significant censorship in this episode. And that's just how we have to do it. We have to follow the community guidelines so that this episode can reach all the people who regularly listen to us. But if you want to listen to it uncensored, it will be available that way on all podcast platforms. We'll talk to you again very soon, and I hope you sleep peacefully, that you have good dreams, that nothing you heard today shows up in your dreams.